What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we finally got release dates, and we now know which game is coming out first from the Final Fantasy line for the Xbox and the Switch, as they gave us some dates, and it turns out I was off by a little bit as to which game was showing up first. We're going to go over those dates, and then we also have to talk about Amazon pretty much entering the game streaming market from what we're seeing sooner than you might think. Oh, maybe it appears to be happening next year, which makes sense considering what's going on in the landscape. And then, well, CES continues to roll along, and we got to look at what looks like a Sega Nomad just made for current times. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Hit the like button, it does help out. And we're going to start off today with Activision. If you missed it, yesterday there was a massive announcement that Bungie and Activision were going to be separating, and they would no longer be working on Destiny together. In fact, Bungie managed to actually retain the rights for Destiny, and well, it looks like investors weren't super thrilled about that. As you're seeing here, it dropped over 6% in aftermarket trading. So we're going to see what happens here today with the stocks, but it's very clear that investors did not like to hear that they were losing a revenue stream despite it not living up to their expectations, as they said that Destiny had not been selling how they wanted it to and bringing the kind of money they wanted it to. They still lost a revenue stream, so to them, that's kind of an issue. Also, Catherine Classic released yesterday out of nowhere on PC. Well, kind of out of nowhere. We had taken a guess at it after we saw ratings for it, and then employees were actually just outright teasing it on the Steam message boards. But yes, Catherine Classic is out on Steam right now. You can go pick it up. It's $19.99, and they added a whole bunch of extra graphical options, including the ability to run it in 4K. Now, the cutscenes appear to still be in like a low resolution, everything. They don't look the greatest, but the game itself on PC is awesome. Now, we do know, of course, we're getting the next Catherine Full Body Edition coming out next month in Japan. We're still waiting for a Western date and other systems, as far as we know now, PS4 and Vita for that one. Although I could see that also go to PC and honestly probably even Switch. So I wouldn't be shocked to see that. This seems like something that they were just putting out there. I think it's Sega Europe that put it up online and everything. So it seems like they just want to put something out there for PC fans, since Catherine is actually just a good game in general. And now, of course, you can do things like unlock the frame rate even. So you can go above 60 frames. You can also cap it there at 60. Don't need a lot to run it. I looked at some of the system requirements. It's pretty low. You can play it on most modern laptops and pretty much even lower end PCs, but I think it's worth going and checking out if you missed it. I really liked Catherine, the game, and I would go check it out for $20. That's a good deal. Oh, and for Dragon Ball fans, check this out. There's going to be a Dragon Ball showcase for different games. I call it the Dragon Ball Games Super Showcase, January 14th, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. They're going to have a couple different guests there. For example, the Xenoverse 2 producer, and then the Dragon Ball FighterZ producer. And they have little pictures down there with a bunch of question marks. So we're all kind of taking guesses at what it could be. I think it's a safe bet to assume there will be new DLC for Dragon Ball FighterZ. I don't think that would shock anyone. But what if we had something like a new Xenoverse game, maybe a new mobile game? They make a lot of money on their mobile games, we'll say that. For Dragon Ball, maybe they talk about that Dragon Ball Heroes game, the World Mission. Who knows? They could announce a new game completely, for all we know. It'd be really cool to see them add some new stuff for different systems and everything, just to see what games they'd come up with. But I think a new Xenoverse would be really cool. Xenoverse 2 I thought was alright, but maybe they could do something a bit more with Xenoverse 3. However, you're going to want to watch this because it sounds like there's going to be something announced there with games, not just DLC. Like I said, they appears to be 4 different announcements with 4 different question marks set up there is what it appears to be. And that's happening January 14th, so make sure you put that on your calendar if you're interested in anything Dragon Ball related. All right, guys, letting the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're going to start right away with Final Fantasy, as we now know that 10-2 and 12 are both coming in April. Those are going to, of course, the Switch and the Xbox. So we heard about this last year in the Nintendo Direct, where they talked about all the Final Fantasy games that were seemingly locked to Sony systems or the Sony ecosystem, leaving and going to other platforms, except for Final Fantasy VIII, because sure, why not, I guess. But all the other ones are coming to the Switch and the Xbox, 2 spots that it's never really ever been. I mean, technically on Windows, you can make a case for that being, oh, that's Microsoft. But for the Xbox and the Switch, these are new. And if you have never played these games before, you should be checking them out because 10 2, 10 definitely though. 10 2 is not bad. It's just not as good as 10 or 12. 12 is very good. You should be checking these out. So when do they come out? Well, 10 and 10 2 come out April 16th, and then you wait till the end of that month, April 30th, for Final Fantasy XII. Now, I kind of thought they would release Final Fantasy VII first, but then we saw a bunch of ratings and even listings straight up for 12 and 10 and 10 2, so it kind of started to make me think, okay, they're going to put these out. They do appear to be all physical and everything, so you can order them however you want. Be interesting to get Final Fantasy on a cartridge again, by the way, like a Final Fantasy 10 or 10 2 on a cartridge, or 12 even. That's going to be interesting to see that, but still, I would like to see them do a full physical for 7. Even if Limited Run Games has to kind of work with Square to make that happen, I would buy a physical cartridge of Final Fantasy VII. Absolutely. Now you're going to have to, I guess, pick which one you want, which system. I get why a lot of people are looking at this as a Switch release primarily and not as much as like an Xbox release. I think it'll sell better on the Switch. I don't think anyone would be amazed by that, but it is still really cool to see this go to the Xbox. And I do think there is a bit of an opportunity here for Microsoft. In fact, I think they should be picking one of these Final Fantasy games out, not necessarily 10, 10 2, or even 12, but I mean, they could pick out 7 or 9. They should be putting one of these on Game Pass day one. Like, they should just be putting it there day and date. And I think that's a great idea to get some of the people on the Xbox that maybe aren't even that familiar with Final Fantasy to take a chance, install it, and just load it up and try it out. Because that could lead to more sales for these other Final Fantasy games that are kind of leading up. I think 7, maybe 7's your best bet to throw on there. But you could also do something like 10. I don't really know if 10 and 10 2 will be separate either, though. I think those will be all together. But if you throw something like 10 and 10 2 on Game Pass, or even 7 on Game Pass, I think that'll be a cool entry point for people to just kind of try it out and then maybe buy in to something like a 12 or a 9, right? And we'll see if other games come over. They really need to do something with Final Fantasy Tactics, by the way. Somebody needs to get on Square about that, because Tactics should be all over the place too. It's a shame that it's not, but maybe we'll get to that point. Either way, for now, 10 and 10 2, that's the first one up mid-April. And then you have to wait 2 weeks, and then you get 12. So I'm curious what everyone's getting. I'm getting both of them. I'll get them on the Switch just because it's probably going to be the same. Maybe the Xbox will have like 4K support or something, but the Switch makes sense because, especially in 10, if you've played Final Fantasy X, when you start filling out that sphere grid and you start just basically grinding away in one of the later dungeons, you're kind of just hitting A or X at the time, I guess, over and over and over again. And, well, that got kind of boring. I'll admit that. But still, it makes a lot of sense, and it's pretty easy to grind when you're on the Switch in handheld, maybe watch TV or something. But that's a game that I'll probably pick up there. But maybe you're getting on the Xbox. Let me know, guys, down below. Next up, let's talk about the Media Create sales charts, as we did get them. The first week that I talked about yesterday with Famitsu, very, very similar, actually, to Media Create for that week. So going over it would be kind of redundant. I'm actually just going to jump to the following week, which is the 31st to the 6th of January. And we're going to start right away with the top 10, as you're seeing here. And yes, Smash Bros. Still at the top, still selling massively. It's barely down, actually, from the week prior. That's 258,974 more. It's actually at 2.6 million copies through Media Create right now, which is ridiculous, by the way. Super Mario Party. I don't understand Super Mario Party. It's had a massive surge recently, just in general, maybe because it's a good party game. It's a good gift to give to somebody, especially if they're in a house with a bunch of people and you just need one Switch to play, I guess. That's actually up almost another 100,000 at 95,102, and that puts it just under a million, actually, 936,000. So Super Mario Party is getting some late success here. That's pretty cool. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is there at number 3. That's actually up to 1.4 million. Seems to be slowing, actually, now, which is interesting for a Pokemon game in Japan, but it's slowing a bit. We'll be comparing this, of course, to Gen 8 when that releases this fall coming up, or this fall later on, but that, I think, will be the big push for Pokemon. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, though, still did pretty well in Japan. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 4. Dragon Quest Builders 2 is at 5 on the Switch, and I did notice that it overtook the PS4 version when I looked at the Famitsu sales. Splatoon 2 there at number 6. Minecraft at 7. Dragon Quest Builders 2 on the PS4 at 8. Go Vacation at 9. Then we have Judgment at 10. Moving over to the hardware, it was an interesting look here because everything, seemingly, except for the Xbox, everything was up. The Switch at 199,982, so just missing that 200,000 mark. PlayStation 4 at 117,000, big push there for the PS4. It's kind of interesting to see that, like up like what 40-something thousand units from last week. The 3DS actually doubled just about at 26,483. The Vita up also 4,138, and then the Xbox, like I said, less than half from the week prior at 155. But look at the lifetime to date for the Switch, over 7 million now, and it's currently less than 700,000 behind the PlayStation 4. Yeah, the Switch is going to start running up to the PlayStation 4. If we get more announcements in this first, the first part of this year, leading up to the end reports for Nintendo in their fiscal year, which I think we're going to have a couple things announced, kind of thrown in there, we probably will see the Switch pass the PlayStation before in Japan, before Nintendo's briefing and everything. Depending on how these next few weeks go, we'll probably have a drop-off though. So don't be shocked if there is a drop-off for the Switch, as we are now getting into January, the holidays are over. But if they start announcing some bigger games before the end of their fiscal year, I think it's pretty clear that the Switch is going to pass the PlayStation 4 in Japan. And we'll just have to see what the drop-off is and see how fast that actually happens. The PS4, though, surprised me. Over 100,000 systems selling in the, I guess, in the aftermath of the holidays. This typically is a bigger week, believe it or not, than the last week of the year. And then this week, it's actually a bit higher, generally, if you look back in the history. So not shocked that there was a jump. That kind of a jump was pretty interesting to see. We'll see what happens next week when we have a bit of drop off, but then we're of course going to get into a few other games, and I'm very curious to see how Kingdom Hearts and Resident Evil Remake, how Resident Evil 2 Remake actually fares in Japan as well, so we'll see. Next up, let's talk about Amazon apparently having their streaming service introduced next year in 2020. This comes from the information with sources around the situation that is reporting there will be an Amazon game streaming service, and the reason this makes a lot of sense, so I'm not shocked, right? I mean, we have a few companies that can really pull this off well. It's mostly Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. They're the ones with the servers that can do this, and all three of them seemingly are interested in getting involved now. Google already kind of involved. They did that with Project Stream. Of course, Microsoft doing their xCloud that's supposed to go into beta soon. And then here comes Amazon, and I'm not shocked. Of course, Amazon's jumping in, and we're going to see what they do here, because I think we're also going to get a situation, you know, we have the Steam and the Epic Store situation right now. I think we're going to get a situation where you have these three companies start to get their own exclusive, their own games that stream only on their platform. I think that's going to start. I think it's going to start soon-ish, where you see Google pull in a company. Remember, we just saw Bandai Namco having some conversation with Google, business conversation, let's be real. They weren't just sharing coffee for fun or whatnot. I think Google might be signing them for something, maybe have Amazon go out and sign another company to specifically do streaming through them. Microsoft, of course, has a lot of studios they just purchased that will do streaming through them. It's going to be an interesting generation over the next 5 to 10 years with gaming, because we're talking about console wars and stuff. We might have the streaming wars, and that'll be fun to see. And it's going to be fun because it'll be new. There still will be consoles, obviously, but to see these big companies go at each other's throats over signing companies for streaming, and Amazon, interesting because they already have technically quite a few systems out there. Think of like the Amazon Fire Sticks that you plug into your TV, the Fire Box, their tablets that are out there. Amazon's been quietly putting devices in people's houses that already can probably stream these things. Maybe you need a controller. Maybe some of them are simple enough to use the remote. But when Amazon announces this officially, it's going to be interesting to see where the streaming world goes. And our last bit of news, well, let's talk about CES, as we might have a new Nomad. Now, if you remember the Nomad like I do, it wasn't fun because you had to ask your parents for batteries every few hours. And back then, batteries were very expensive, and they're still kind of expensive, but then it was like you needed batteries for everything, so they were just more valuable at the time in the household because everything used them, whereas now everything plugs into charge, you know. But back then, if you took batteries out of the drawer, people noticed immediately, and that Nomad killed batteries. But the idea was it would basically play your Genesis cartridges on the go until your batteries died. But either way, you could also plug it into your TV. I don't remember it having a reset button because I thought I played X-Men on there and you couldn't get past a certain part because you had the reset button. Either way, it was a cool concept. Sega was trying some new things. It didn't work very well in that setting. Technology's a lot better now. So here comes Retrobit to CES to show off what appears to be a rough prototype, as they're saying, that looks just like the Nomad, except not the terrible screen and not the need for batteries. Yeah, you're seeing some images here, and I do want to stress, CES, sometimes companies just show up with things that aren't ever going to come out, right? It's proof of concept, it's an idea. If it does come out, it might be something completely different, even it might not even be that same shape. But I would like to see this. This will be cool. It takes your actual Genesis cartridges. It appears to have a better screen, plugs in through micro USB, so it charges up a battery inside. They're talking, the rumored price is $80. I think they have something there at $80, to be honest. Like, I think people will buy it because it looks like the Nomad, and of course it has that functionality. We've had devices like the Superboy that played Super Nintendo games, but this, because Retrobit has the licensing with Sega, might be an official Nomad. We can say that because Retrobit probably would get a license from Sega. This would be an officially licensed system. That's not confirmed yet, but they're making a bunch of licensed accessories. They have that deal in place, so a new Nomad, you know, just like 20, 30 years later, 20-something years later or whatever, that's going to be really cool to see if this actually comes to market. Again, it has to actually come to market. There's a lot of cool stuff at CES, but 10% of it comes to market, and the rest of it are proof of concepts that then eventually shrink down to stuff that we buy, you know, normal people buy for reasonable prices. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about, whether it's the Final Fantasy games that are now dated. We got 10-2 and 10, and then we have Final Fantasy 12 coming over. Do you already have your sights set on one of them? Maybe you pre-ordered. Let me know, and let me know what system you're getting on, and would you like to see Microsoft take a shot and put one on Game Pass? I say yeah, let's do that and get this introduced to a younger audience who might not take a shot at buying it. And then also, we think about Amazon streaming or even the Nomad. Would you buy a Nomad right now for $80 if it was good, if it was quality and it didn't eat all of your AA batteries? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.